Hello. How are you lot, all right? Wicked. It's 20 minutes you won't get back. Thanks for coming along. I'm not going to show loads of our work. My name's Nils, by the way. I'm a founder of a studio called Uncommon. We've been going about 8 years. We have studios in 3 different countries now. I'm not going to wang on and show you a load of work. I thought it might be more useful, given the rhetoric and around this festival and around LinkedIn, instead to sort of talk about this, how to start a creative company at the worst point in human history to start a creative company, because arguably it is. Hang on. What's going on here? No, okay, there's a slide missing. That's all right, it's a good start. I was going to introduce the world to you in the form of a film, but I think we all know what the world's like at the moment. It's mad. And I think the real point I wanted to make is if we're going to start a creative company, really you don't start it in a category. I think it's tempting to think you do sometimes. You know, I'm starting this in the ad industry or the design industry. And what dawned on me when we started Uncommon is that you actually start it in the world. And part of that, when you look at the world, a global pandemic, cost of living crisis, political division, rising inequality, economic pessimism, inflation, global GDP, wildfires, extreme weather, the biggest existential crisis of a generation, the climate emergency, bit closer to home, happy days, a talent exodus apparently, the onslaught of AI, a decline in creative standards, the skip ad button, fearful clients, and a unanimous lack of respect for the word creativity in boardrooms all over the world. This is the rhetoric we hear, right, all the time on LinkedIn. This kind of feels like the truth. This can seem like the bad news part of your day. I love this quote. This is Virginia Woolf. You can't find peace by avoiding life. We've loved this at Uncommon for many years. Really, our theory is that all these problems are kind of fuel, and they're far more powerful fuel than a comfortable brief or a fucking beanbag or, you know, a water slide in your agency. We have this quote. Some of you have heard me wang on before will recognize it. It's from Death of a Salesman. I don't know if you know the bit in the book or the play. They're all sat around cynically going, "Oh, forget it." And he screams at them, "I'm not interested in stories about the past or any crap of that kind, because the woods are burning." And he wants them to be moved by the burning woods. He wants them to get up and revolt and act and take action. And this quote has been at the start of all of our decks that we've shown clients and our people from day one. Because really, never mind the industry, the world's never felt so much like this. But this quote's at the heart, I think, of really the proper acts of creativity, I suppose, the biggest innovations. Some of those, you know, I'd argue all of these companies that we laud now as the best in class came from a similar version of events. The music industry, ripping everyone off, so Spotify was born. Renting property was a disgusting minefield, so Airbnb. Local taxis were rank and unsafe, so Uber. Big banks are pissing everyone off, so Monzo. And cable TV was drip-feeding content like a crack dealer. Do you remember having to wait a week for a show? Now, but these are all come from a problem, right? These aren't companies that were born trying to do a slightly better version of something. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Really, what I'd love to say to anybody in this industry is don't start in service. You've done that long enough. You know, we're in the client services industry, I think is the worst phrase to fucking exist in our game. Well, it is. It implies already that your job is chasing someone else's dreams. So don't start something they wish existed. Start something that you did. You know, that is the one lesson I've learned from Uncommon, is if you back that enough, with enough delusion and luck, by the way, things happen. This is obvious. The companies we revere were not better versions of what had come before. They saw it all differently. It's easy to write that LinkedIn post about how Apple are the most profitable company, how Mischief disrupted the fashion industry, or how A24, big up those guys, are now worth billions after the event. At the start, though, they were just weird. They were weird. This is a quote from Ez Devlin, actually. And she applies it, I think, to her work. But I think it's also true of studios and agencies, which is really what sets you apart, is how close you can get to the edge. And I think the missing words there are of what's been done, or what's possible. And I think the more you push at something, and the more deluded it seems, although in here it feels right, the higher chance you have of making something original. And I think that's really why we're all here. I'd love to talk about this. So, what's your reference point? We talk a lot about these at Uncommon. We said we wanted to be, at some point, a reference point in the world, and not in our industry, but in the world, that someone might say, "Fucking hell, have you seen those Uncommon guys?" Or do you remember when Uncommon... when people start something, it dawned on me that a lot of the time they just start, and they're like, "Hi, I'm Bill, Jane, and Bob, and we're quite good." And you're like, that's not enough. And I wonder how many of us could really succeed if we've never pictured what it looks like. Now, like the hippies among you will go, that's manifesting, and I really believe in it. But it is. And I mean this sincerely. Like, what's success in this game now? Do we think about that? What is success? If you have an amazing career, what will that be? Oh, brilliant. I'm going to keep fucking going. What will you have made? Hey, on script. Who will you have done better than? I love this. I'm going to talk overtly about jealousy and revenge. I think they're quite important factors in a creative career. What will people have said? What has changed in the world? What does your studio look like? How does your reception smell? Fucking love the smell of our reception. Perfumer H, by the way. How much money have you made? What won't you do? What clients won't you take? What work won't you make? I think these things are really important. And I think if you're going to start something, picture it. Go mad. Make a mood board. But it's important to picture it so you know. Look, there's some other stuff. So there's a few. Is this making sense, the way I'm unloading this? I hope it is, by the way. All right, cool. Necessary evils of running a company. Here's some stuff I learned. Default position of our industry is this. I've had an amazing idea. Who can I get to make it for me? It's true, right? Oh, we've had this a wicked idea. Cool, can we get a producer and the PR person and also maybe get a great suit and to sell it? And you're like, already that idea is not happening. You need 4 fucking people to take it out the room. So this is as charty as I get. When we started, we were realized that we needed all these people to do something. And so we were like, well, Christ, okay, this is the actual real problem. We're madly dependent. So most agencies need this. They're going to win a bit of business, write, design, sell it, money, producing craft. We tried to make something that worked like this. And we just wanted to remove as many of those needs, as many of those barriers, as many of those people, really, frankly, as we could. So my advice would be to each and every individual in here, it doesn't matter what level you're at, never step away from the tools. You ever seen that thing where a CEO or a CCO now only knows how to use his phone and email? I'm like, that is death. That's like career suicide to me. So learn to design, script, draw, write, edit code, diarize, organize, prioritize. No one teaches creatives those lessons, by the way, guys. How to prioritize, how to have a meeting. When does anyone ever teach you that? I certainly took me far too long to learn that. How to sell, how to PR, how to smash social, how to win juries over, and how to ask for money. These things are massively important because the more you can do yourself, the closer you are to making your idea a reality. I think this is incredibly important. Like when you start a company, I was at Grey before and I was a big baggy, there's some people from Grey when I was at Grey. I was a big baggy fucking, waltz around and I'd forgotten how to do things, I think. And when you start, you become woefully aware of how little you actually did in your day, like actually did. And there's just 3 of you, And a lot of the first work we made at Uncommon, I ended up literally building the deck, making the work, building the narrative, doing the sell, and I suddenly felt incredibly liberated. Right, this is the slaggy bit. I'm just going to check my time. Okay, cool. Articulation, otherwise known as selling. Right, so the industry position. Why care about selling? Isn't that what the slags do? We're in the business of art, my love. Stop with this stinky chat of selling. I think this is sort of how we feel about it. It's like, oh, I'm a creative. Let's just pop this fucker up. He summed up his position with a famous proposition: being good in business is the most fascinating kind of art. Making money is art, and working is art, and good business is the best art. I love this. Why divorce the idea of selling, which, by the way, is divorcing yourself from the money, and the act of creation? I found that mad ever since I started in this industry. A quote I love, Gilbert and George: make the world to believe in you and to pay heavily for the privilege. That's why you should start a company. This is not for you. This is the default position of art, by the way. Simply adopting the body language of art adds worth, allure, and power. Sometimes you shouldn't turn pitches down because they're wrong. Sometimes you should and ah about it because it will make them fucking want you. And when you're charging, yeah, people bill by hours and bill by whatever. The long and the short of it is, art adopts the position of, this is worth whatever the fuck I say it is, because we did it, and we did it off our own back. And I think a company that starts and understands its relationship with what it makes in this way could become really, really powerful. I'm just going to be honest about it. You can and ah about getting good at selling, but I think unless you do, you're going to limit your chances of making. You'll limit your chances of personal fame, limit your chances of making exponential, amounts of money. So I'd like to talk very quickly about our position in that role of selling. You know, articulation, the way in which you express your feelings and ideas. How many times have we all heard this phrase? Hands up how many times you've said it. Be honest. All right, cool. So a good friend of the studio is Thomas Heatherwick. He's an annoyingly talented bloke. He gives this talk, and someone says to him, Thomas, you're renowned as a wizard in the boardroom. Tell us, what's your secret? He said, you lot are obsessed with selling. He said, fucking hell. He goes, let me put it to you like this. If someone gives me £1 million to come up with an idea for them, £1 million, and I can't tell them about the idea in a way that makes them have to do it, how could that be their fault? And I was like, oh, shit. How could that be their fault? Like, they've given you money to come up with something for you. How can that possibly be their fault if you can't explain it in a way that makes them not just want to do it, but fucking have to do it? And really what that did is it just shifted it all back onto me, and I was like, that is what I needed to hear. You know, and I just thought that was an amazing, amazing quote. And this guy, by the way, has convinced people to build some of the most ludicrous buildings in the world. So to be fair, he knows what he's on about. Here's another thing in the process of making this studio might understand and be good at, is to know what you're fighting for. And keep your eye on that. We get drawn, we don't know we do, like gravity into the small bits of our project, the bits we sort of care about and learn to care about and are talked into caring about. And this is true of every project you'll make, but it's also true of your business. You know, I struggle to think about Uncommon as an entity all the time, but I have to step back sometimes and do that. Transcript of an actual conversation with the designer. I literally cannot believe they didn't buy the fucking italic numerals, and I knew we were creating a world-class logo across media no one's even discovered yet. Launched with the coolest brand on the planet, but honestly, I'm just going to put a fork in my eye and kill everyone if they don't buy the italic font. Facts. I'm sat going, fuck, we've had loads of chats like this, you know, and what I mean by this is, I want it all my own way is not the same as this is the thing that makes the project special. And you have to protect that. And in every project we ask, where's the win? What's the thing where if we lose it, the whole thing breaks? If they want it in yellow, who gives a fuck? But if we change this, everything dies. That's the thing we have to focus on. And I think that discipline in your company, as well as in your work, is really, really healthy. I'll send them both over there, I can't choose. Right. This is more cringe stuff. Like, yes is an emotional word. I've learned this. You can have all the planning and strategy and all that other stuff and the data, by the way, in the world, and someone will still not want to do something, and you can't ever really work out why, and I've worked out, or my feeling on it, is that they weren't moved to do it. They didn't feel somewhere in here that this was important and powerful. And why this really matters is when you're making big stuff, you don't really get to sell it. So you'll sell it to a couple of people in your room, and then they'll have to fight what we call an end-of-level baddie. We've all got one of those. They all go to a meeting you won't go to. And that person will say worse shit than they've said to you. They'll say, this is pointless, it's indulgent, it's irrelevant, it won't last in 3 years. And they'll have to go to bat for it. And the reason they'll do that is that you've moved them. So in your storytelling, in your decks, worry less about the rational and make them fall in love with your way of being, your thinking, the thing that's going to push this to actually getting made. Here's a horrendous secret. Music can make anything emotional. We put music on almost fucking everything. Too much, in fact. I'm just going to read you How to Wash Chinos to Cornfield Chase. Washingchinos is a relatively easy process. Unfortunately, it can be done using a washing machine. Below, we've outlined simple steps for carrying out this process. 1, remove any items from the pockets and turn the chinos inside out. Place in the washing drum. Fucking hell. You get it. Don't remove the shyness, remove the brashness, particularly here in the UK. We're quite like, oh, I can't really. I'm like, fuck that. Put massive music on everything. Get them crying. They'll sell it for you. Right. McQueen, another fucking legend, Lee. He used to say, which I love, the collection is half the story. You ever heard that? So he would design, by the way, some of the most incredible clothes the world has ever seen, and then be like, right, I'm half done. Because how I drop the clothes, how I tell the world about the clothes, is more important or as important as the clothes themselves. This is just one. If you put in Alexander McQueen controversy, you will see thumbnails of all the work that's going to be better than yours for the rest of your life. It's insane. And actually, the understanding the mechanics of PR and mechanics of fame are incredibly important. You know, and I don't think this stuff is an accident. We learned that. There are a load of ways at it. In a previous life, I made a thing called Life Paint. I didn't really know what we were doing at the time, but I learned a lot from it. Someone said about it, I think it was Fast Company, that the best advertising doesn't look like ads. That phrase has stuck around now. We've all heard that loads. Inside this, though, was a new way of making things that I thought I'd share with you. And if I could do all this again, I wouldn't make a single advert. We call them narrative objects. We talk a lot about that. This was a boot we made in New York. I don't know if you saw this. It's called Rat Boot, creatively. It was nuts. Basically, for the launch of Fashion Week in New York, we said, how do we get talked about? Sam Shepard came up with the idea. There are 4 million rats and 8 million people in New York. So for Fashion Week, let's make a boot where they can both meet. Ludicrous. We put these on a model. She walked down the end of the road. 20 people were filming her. One of those films got 140 million views. They put the Ratatouille music on it. It's nuts. I don't know what the fucking lesson is in that. I sort of do, a bit. Objects, experiences, places, you want to touch them now and be in them. They are more important and less invasive than ads. You seek them out. You don't get fisted by them. Sorry about that. But you know what I mean, right? You suddenly go, if you make a thing and it has a draw and a desire attached to it. You know, we did a thing for The Ordinary recently where we put 10 million quid in a shop in New York. What was mad is the effect of a minute queue that started in the morning ended up with a queue 2 times around the block for that thing. Because people were like, what's in there? I better queue. I'm like, fuck, people are mad. But it's like a new way of being, I think. And here's some other work that we've done, and I'm not going to talk through it, but what dawned on me is I think the most exciting work our studio's made has been this type of stuff. And imagine a creative studio that just made this stuff completely unencumbered, that this was all they did. We'd all be fascinated by them. Right, I'm going to close out in a minute. Look, yeah. So here's another thing I've learned really far too late. I've said the word humbled on LinkedIn like 52 million times. I am fucking humbled, man. I'm really made up, but I have no other way to express myself anymore. What dawned on me is we're all really fucking needy. I'm really needy. Like, why are we all so needy? Like, you're on LinkedIn, we're here at these places, you want to be seen. We want to be recognized, we want to be loved, and we want to be regarded. And I think there's something in that we've not spotted. And I'm just going to play you this. Forgive the reference, Jude Law's a bit hammy in this, but the insight's great.
Who is the most important author of the last 20 years? Careful now. Not the best. Virtuosity is for the arrogant. The most important. The author who sparked so much morbid curiosity that he became the most important.
I wouldn't know. I'd say Philip Roth?
No. Salinger. The most important film director.
Spielberg?
No. Kubrick. Contemporary artist.
Jeff Koons. Oh, Marina Abramovic.
Banksy. Electronic music group.
Oh, I don't know the first thing about electronic music.
You say Harvard is a good university. Anyway, Daft Punk.
The best Italian female vocalist?
Mina?
Ah, brava. Now, do you know what it is? What the invisible red thread that connects them all? All these most important figures in their respective fields? None of them let themselves be seen.
That's super interesting. Like, we're all here amongst each other, and that's lovely, and honestly, it's brilliant to actually have people that you can share shit with, but the coolest fucking people aren't. You know, they're kind of above it or other. And I think if I was starting again as well, you'd have no fucking idea what we look like. I just love that. How cool would that be in our industry? Where's the mystery gone? That's the point, anyway. Never apologize, never explain, disappear, win, possibly. So here's a summary, if that made any sense. This company will play a role in the real world, not the industry. Be in service of your dreams, not someone else's to-do list. It will be tangible in your fantasies. Be worth fuck tons of money and not afraid to say it. Be incredible at articulating our ideas and mission. Be crystal clear in what we're chasing now and in the end. It won't make advertising, and it will make more than everyone else by needing less people, and it would ugly become a reference point. Why am I telling you all this? Because I worry that actually there's a lot of talk about AI, but I think the biggest danger to our industry is apathy. I worry that we're watching from the sidelines, and that we're posting and we're criticizing and we're whinging and that freaks me out. And I think that it's not the time for that. I don't think cynicism is intelligence, and hope isn't weak, and belief isn't blind. You know, and I think these things and a brash sense of positivity out of all this shit is a really, really amazing place to play. Ultimately, life's too short to be a fucking passenger. The only real lesson is to care. Look, there's one thing I realized that running a studio and running an agency, I used to try and give people bigger jobs to keep them to stay and get them better Macs and give them an office or something. And I realized people just want to make. And everyone, all of this, we all just go to work and we go for fucking hours, man, and we grind ourselves. And I thought the biggest promise that I could make to absolutely everybody in the studio I run is that I wouldn't waste your time, is that your time here will not be wasted. And I think if there was one lesson I could give you on starting something, it's to be a place where people turn up, and that's the promise you make them. Hope I haven't wasted yours. Thanks.